Hi, so in this video we are going to take a look at animation blueprints for our Revenant character. So if you did download the assets from the previous lecture, you should have something like this. You have the Paragon Revenant folder here. And if we go into it, you can see that we are having the Heroes folder, and we do have some animation blueprints for this one, as well as the character blueprint class. And as I mentioned, we are gonna do this, from scratch together, so you learn from it. So to get started, I want you to go to the contents folder. I'm gonna create a new folder called blueprints. Go into that one, and then now we are in the blueprints folder. I'm gonna, let's see. What we can do here is let's go back to the characters folder, Heroes, Revenant. And if I open this up, you can see that it's already having a lot of code implemented with it. So what we're going to do is really just create everything from scratch. So I think the best thing to do is go to Blueprints folder, and we can create a new folder called Character to stay organized. Go in here. Let's start with the blueprint class, and it should be a character. I'm gonna call it BP Revenant. BP Revenant. I'm gonna open this up, and let's select the mesh, because what we want to do here is to set up a character from scratch, and we're gonna reuse that asset that we downloaded. So I'm gonna go to select the mesh here. That's the skeletal mesh component, and let's click here. And now you can choose which skin or skeletal mesh you want to use. Let's see how they look like. This is pretty cool. Let's look at this one. I think this one is pretty cool, so I'm gonna go with this one. You can really choose which skin you want here. And I'm gonna drag this down a little bit. It's way too high. Negative 89 is usually a good value, and the same goes with the rotation. So it's rotating the forward direction. If you go to global space, you can see that this is the forward direction. I'm gonna compile and save, and let's minimize this. And now we want an animation blueprint for this character. The animation blueprint is really used for a skeletal mesh, and we are gonna use that for the skeletal mesh of this character. And the animation blueprint really defines how the skeletal mesh of this character should animate. Okay, so let's just right click on this. Let's see if I can do it from here. All right, so let's just right click and go to animation, and then create an animation blueprint. Choose the Revenant skeleton, click on create, because as I said, an animation blueprint is really bound to a skeletal mesh, and now we have selected the Revenant skeletal mesh, because the animation blueprint really decides how the skeletal mesh should animate. I'm gonna rename this to ABP as the animation blueprint Revenant. And before we look into this animation blueprint, let's open up this character class we created and select the skeletal mesh component. You can see that it says here use animation blueprint. I'm gonna click here, search for ABP Revenant. Now it's using our animation blueprint. I'm gonna double click on this and let's see here. So currently you can see that we are having the animation graph here and we are having the event graph here. So what are the differences? The event graph, this is where we do create all of our variables which we can then feed into the animation graph, such as player speed and velocity. We will do that pretty soon. So first off, I'm gonna right click here and type state machine. I'm gonna call it ground loco, as in ground locomotion. And I'm gonna connect it here. Let's double click in this and to go into it, I'm gonna compile. Let's drag from here and add a state. I'm gonna call it idle. Go into it, and if you look here, you can see that we are having a lot of animations. And these animations are really bound to a skeletal mesh component. These are really bound to the skeletal mesh component of whatever character this animation blueprint is bound to. So these are a part of the, well, Revenant skeletal mesh animations. If you look at all of these animations here, these are bound to the skeletal mesh of the Revenant character. Okay, so if you have two characters with the same skeletal mesh, like this character is having here, they will both be able to use all of these animations here. However, if the characters would have different skeletal meshes, you would need to retarget those animations from this character to the other character. But retargeting is really out of scope. That's not something we are going to discuss for now. But what I want you to understand is that these animations here really are bound to a skeletal mesh. In this case, the skeletal mesh of the Raven, which we downloaded from the asset store. So if you look here, you can see that it says idle AO, AO, and you see a lot of AO here. AO stands for aim offset. And CC, I believe, stands for center, center, center down, and then we have center up, and so on. We will discuss these in another lecture, but for now, we are interested in an idle animation here, so I'm gonna bring in this one. Click on it and make sure this loops, because we want this to loop. Otherwise, it would just play once and then stop playing it. I'm gonna connect it here and compile. And you can see that the character is now in an idle state. Let's go back. I'm gonna create another state here called move. Yeah, let's call it move. And in order to move, you can see that we have this small arrow or icon here. This is really the transition rule for the movement. And you can see that arrow here. It indicates that we can go from idle to move. I'm gonna connect move to idle again because we want to be able to go back as well, and compile. Let's go to move by double clicking on it, and here I believe we are going to use a blend space, but for now let's just add something as a placeholder. I'm going to type move. Let's see if I can find something. We have something like jog forward, so I'm going to bring this out and connect it here. Let's make sure this is looping as well and compile. But for now, you can see that we don't really have any transition rules, and we're also getting a warning here. So how do we do that? Well, now we are going to use the event graph. In the event graph, we can create our own variables which we can feed into this animation graph. So let's do that. We need the velocity of the character. So how do we do that? Well, first off, I'm gonna override, if you go here, let's see if I can find it. It should be in function somewhere. Initialize animation. I'm gonna get the polynomial here and then just promote this to a variable and call it BP poly. Or why not even cast it to, let's see if we can do it better. Cast to BP Revenant. I'm casting it to the Revenant character instead. And this only runs during initialization, so this is a perfect place to create our references for the character, for example. We don't want to do this every single tick, because if you look here, this update function runs once a millisecond, I believe, or every frame, I mean. So it really runs very often. But this is the init function, so we can initialize our things here, our variables. So I'm going to initialize a variable for our character here, so we can access it later on for easier access. So I'm going to promote this, and I'm going to change the name to, well, BP underscore Revenant. All right. So as I mentioned, we need the speed. In order to do that, we need to, if I remember correctly, we need to access the movement component. So what I want you to do is, I'm having a mini challenge for you. I want you to try this out. Drag out the BP Revenant and try to access the movement component of it, and try to see if you can find a variable called velocity. And if you find it, you need to take the length of it, because that's actually the speed of the character. So find the velocity vector and get the length of it. Pause the video and give this a try. And if you do, get the length of it and promote it to a variable. Okay, hopefully you did well and you paused the video and gave this a try. Not a big deal if you didn't, but I want you to get used to it. So really, all we need to do is drag from here. I think it's get movement component, get character movement. Get character movement. Here you go, it's the blue one, get character movement. This is the movement component of the character. Let's see if I can get velocity. We have something called get velocity. And as I mentioned, you need to get the length of it. So if you type get length, or maybe length, if you just type length, I'm gonna get the XY length, because we don't want the length in the Z axis, because that's for jumping. So I'm gonna only get the XY length. That is when the character is on the floor. And if you look at the picture here, you can see that the Z is the up axis. X and Y is on the floor. So getting the X and Y, I'm gonna promote this to a variable. I'm gonna call it speed. So let's just do this. Connect these together. All right, so now we got the speed. I'm gonna compile. So we are gonna feed this into our animation graph. So let's go to the ground loco. Here is the animation graph. Let's start with the transition state from idle to move. So when are we going to move? Well, if you double click this, you can drag out the speed. We can check if this is larger than 0. If this is the case, it means that we are moving. I'm gonna go back. And here is the move to idle. And now we want to go to the idle state when the speed is less than or equal to 0. And now we are not really getting any warnings anymore. And besides, before we test, let's see if you can, if you go to world settings, you can see that we are not really having a game mode set here. We need to do that. And I think we have to create our own game mode. So I'm gonna quickly do that. Let's go to blueprints. And I'm gonna add a new folder here called game mode. Go into that, right click, go to blueprint class. Choose a game mode base, BP. I'm gonna call it my game mode. I'm gonna save this. Let's open this up. And what we need to do here is to set the default pawn. We need to set this so our character gets spawned in by default. So make sure default pawn class is set to BP Revenant. Compile and save. Now that we have our own game mode with a default pawn set, we can select our game mode here. So if you go to the world settings here and select this here, game mode override, BP my game mode. And if you're not having this world settings window, you can go to, let's see, I'm gonna cancel this. You can go to window and you have something called world settings here. Alright, so now that this is fixed, I'm getting those errors because I believe I'm accidentally having two instances of the same project open. So I'm gonna close one of them, the other one, and I'm gonna try to save again, and it works just fine. So yeah, okay. So now that we have our game mode set with our default pawn, we can try this out. I'm gonna click on play. That's the, let's see if I just click on this. Okay, you can see that we are having these errors here. That's from the asset we just imported, and it says there is errors in it. So I'm gonna go to Paragon. Let's see. Let's see if I can. Let's try the play in editor. Okay. So you can just ignore that for now, that error. What I'm gonna do is go to character Revenant, and I noticed we are not really having a camera component here with a spring arm component, so let's add that. I'm gonna go to click capsule here and add. Let's add a spring arm component. It allows you to distance the camera from the character. It's like an arm actually. I'm gonna click on the spring arm add and then type camera. I can see that now the camera is connected to the character, and let's make this arm a little bit longer. I think 500 is good. And I'm gonna try to bring this up. Let's see if we can spring on. If you click on the camera that is now attached to the spring arm, because we just added it, you can make sure it's connected to the spring endpoint. That's a socket on the arm. So the camera now follows the arm. And really, I'm gonna move this up a little bit in the z-axis. Let's see if we can, and then I'm gonna try to rotate this like this. Let's try that. Keep the location 0, but rotate it in the y-axis. Let's see how it behaves. New Pi editor window. And currently I can't move because we need to fix the input settings, of course. And we are gonna do that next actually. I don't want this video to become too long, but for now you can see that it's still working. Let's see if we can, by the way, if I go to, if you go to the animation blueprint, you can go to animgraph ground loco It really doesn't matter where you are. You can see animation graph is working. You can see that it's streaming here. But what we can do is, I think we can, no, it doesn't allow me to. I'm gonna try something out and see if it works. Animation Blueprint Revenant. I'm gonna see if we can increase the speed. Alright. Let's try this out in the next lecture instead. I don't wanna experiment too much for now. Alright, so now at least we have a state machine up and running, and in the next lecture we will do more. I think we will set up the we will start with setting up the inputs for the character, because we need to move forward, backwards, left and right after all, and we need those key inputs with the buttons. And I believe we will need to create our controller as well. That could be a good idea, because we need our controller class, and we will also need a blend space also. So let's check one more thing out before we leave, before we wrap up. I'm gonna go to characters. Yeah, we will need to create our own control. So before wrapping up, let's make this the last thing we do before we wrap up. So I'm gonna go to content, blueprints, and we have the character and game mode folder, and I'm gonna go to the character folder and create a character's controller here, really. So I'm gonna just click on blueprint class and then choose player controller, bp underscore my controller. So we need to set this in the game mode, of course. So I'm gonna open our game mode. That's in the blueprints game mode, and I'm already having it here, I can see. So it says player controller class, choose bp my controller. So what we're gonna do here next is to set up our enhanced inputs, our button presses, so we can, move left and right and so on. But we will do that next. All right, so thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.